Hey everyone, this is Jono. I'm so thrilled that you can join me here today. It's a real honor to be delivering this keynote, but I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to dive right in. Now, my goal with this session is to give you a concrete framework for building any kind of community, but I'm obviously going to focus on technology communities because of this event, okay? Now, you don't have to walk very far to bump into an amazing example of a technology community. Just look at GitHub or Ubuntu or Hashicorp or the Linux kernel or Kubernetes or Hyperledger. There's many examples all over the world of great technology communities, but all communities can be basically boiled down into one of three models. Now, the first model is called the consumer model, and this is where people get together because they've got a shared interest. You might be a fan of Iron Maiden or Taylor Swift, and you join a community because it's basically fun hanging out with your own tribe, okay? Now, the second model goes a step further, and this is where the community creates content and runs events and has other features and facilities that are all designed to maximize the community experience. So it's a really valuable place to be, not just a fun place to be, okay? And then the third model is the collaborator model, and this is where we really focus on technology. So I'm going to focus on this one in particular today. Now, this model basically breaks down into two kind of sub-models. Inner collaborator communities are basically open source projects. It's where people get together to build software, right? Or focus on open hardware, for example. Now, the success criteria for an inner collaborator community, an open source community, is you build amazing technology and it's a level playing field for everybody to be successful. And there's a lot of nuance in how you do that. Now, the outer collaborator model is where you publish an SDK and you build a community of developers who are going to use that SDK to create technology such as the Apple and Android app stores, okay? These are very, very different models for how to build communities, so don't conflate the two of them. Pick one of them depending on what you're trying to do. Now, here's the thing. The very, very best experiences in life are journeys, okay? And you want to design any kind of human experience, whether it's a community experience, or whether it's people going through a webinar, or whether it's people going to an event, you want to design it as a journey. A good example is Disney. When you go to Disney World, from how you show up and park your car and buy your tickets and where the rides are and when the restaurants open and where the parades are, everything is carefully designed by Disney to maximize the guest experience and get as many people through the gate as possible. It's the same thing with good restaurants. It's a very, very carefully designed set of events. And even with video games, the first couple of levels are usually designed to help you spin up, understand the controls, and solve some simple tasks. Now, the reason why this works is because we're going through a psychological journey. And this is what the psychological journey looks like for communities. So first of all, it all starts out with access. You access the community, you get involved. And then we want to encourage people to contribute. Now, when people contribute, and their contributions are welcome, it builds a sense of self-respect. And when you have a virtuous cycle of contributions, it builds a sense of dignity, that you have value, that you offer something to this group of people. Now, when you get to that particular point and you've got that magical combo of self-respect and dignity, it gives people the confidence to have a bigger impact, right? So a good example is the Linux kernel. It started out with Linus Torvalds with his little project, and as people came in and they contributed code and it was accepted, it gave them the confidence to have bigger and bolder ideas, and that's what made the Linux kernel into this amazing technology movement, because people were able to start contributing fresh ideas and make it bigger and more impressive than ever before. When all of this happens, it generates a sense of belonging. And we all know what that feels like. It's where if you went away for a couple of weeks, you'd be missed. It's where you feel like you've got intrinsic value in this group of people. So the goal here is we want to get people from access through to belonging, okay? Now, the challenge, and I worked with the good people at MIT, and they managed to take this amazing photograph of the inside of the human brain and typically what it's doing on a day-to-day basis. And it looks like this, okay? We are surrounded by distractions and noise and junk and all kinds of stuff going on. So how do we pull people away from Netflix and the PlayStation 5 and whatever celebrity gossip is happening and bring them into a community? Well, we need to answer this very specific question. What makes people want to do something new? Like, why on earth should they come to your community and not, be distracted by these other things, okay? Well, the answer to this question is value. You've got to give them something that's valuable to them that will justify them coming back, okay? Now, the good news is that in the community context, there's all kinds of great value. You can get help and support. You can create technology and work with other people on solving technological problems. You can learn and develop new skills in a community. You can meet amazing new people and build relationships. You can grow your career. You can create and share new content. You can participate and speak at events. But that's a lot of really cool stuff. But how do you choose what you should focus on? What's most important? Well, there's two things I recommend you focus on and zone in hard on these, and that is pain and roadblocks. Okay? Think about your target audience. Let's say you're building an open source infrastructure project, right? Well, if you think about a typical infrastructure engineer, right, the person you see in your head, what sucks about their life? What do they hate about the work that they do? What do they, you know, try to avoid as much as possible? And also, what are the roadblocks standing in the way when they dream about what they want to do, what they want to focus on? What's standing in the way of that success? It's the pain and roadblocks will help you to zone in on what the value proposition for your community is going to be. Okay. So think very carefully about who your audience is, what their pain and roadblocks are, and now we can move through to this thing. Okay, this is what I call my community participation model. It's something that I've developed over the 20 plus years that I've been building communities, and it's basically a blueprint for how to go about building a community. So let me break this down. We first of all start out with that audience that I mentioned. Think about who they are, what the pain and roadblocks are in their lives, and then start thinking, what is going to be the first piece of value we want to give them that solves that pain or breaks down a roadblock? And that's represented here by the star. Now, what needs to happen from someone who's brand new to get to that piece of value? Okay, this is where onboarding comes in. And it typically looks a little bit like this. Like, why on earth should they come into your community and participate? How do we give them simple instructions to set up the tools that they need? How do we build the skills in them to get up and running? So, for example, if we want them to contribute a pull request to a project, well, how do they learn the code base and how do they make that contribution? We make it easy for them to tangibly engage, such as making that PR. Where do they go to solve their problems, such as a Slack channel or a discourse or somewhere like that? And then when they've achieved that first piece of value, how do we validate them? How do we recognize that they did that and we appreciate it? Okay. So think about what those different pieces are. It's amazing how many communities don't do this and they end up having a very, very poor quality onboarding experience and people just, they give up and they move on to something else. Now, when they've experienced that first piece of value, they then go through three fundamental phases. And let's zone in on these real quick. The first one is called casual. This is where they're brand new to the project. They don't really know anyone. There's a lot of imposter syndrome and they're not sure if it's worth their time. Now, it takes about 2 months to build a habit. If you want to lose weight, if you want to booze less, if you want to have a healthy lifestyle or spend more time with your family, whatever, it takes 2 months for it to go from being something you have to think about to something that feels much more natural. So the goal that we've got with the casual phase is to mentor them for 2 months to give them a reason to keep coming back. Lots of value, lots of support, friendly engagement will keep them coming back. Now, the next phase is when they become regulars. This is where they're showing up most weeks and they're getting a lot of value out of the community. And this is where we focus on collaboration. This is where we can convert them into people who create content, who participate in events, who contribute other bits of technology. They would never do that if they were casual members because they're not convinced by the community yet. So when they're regulars, this is when you can have a conversation about collaboration. And then a very small number of people in your community will become super enthusiastic. They'll love everything that you're doing, and they will be your core members. And this is where you unlock their wisdom. This is where you ask them, how do we make this a better, more inclusive, more impactful community experience for everybody involved? Okay. Now, to move people from the mentoring, from the casual to the regular to the core phase, this is where we use incentives. Okay. We drop in lots and lots of incentives to keep them moving forward. And we see incentives everywhere, airline mileage, programs. We see those coffee cards where if you get your 10th coffee, you get a free coffee. We see Reddit karma, trophies in video games, all kinds of good stuff. So think about where you will drop these rewards in that journey. So for example, if somebody, they go from the regular phase into the from the casual phase into the regular phase, maybe you just recognize them publicly in the community. Let's say they submit their first pull request and they get it accepted. Maybe you give them a badge. Let's say somebody becomes a maintainer in the project. Well, maybe you'll then give them a little swag bag or gift, maybe a gift card and maybe some swag that gets sent out to them. Think about the key points in the community journey that are valuable for them, valuable for the project, and then apply those kinds of incentives and rewards. Okay. Anyway, I hope this was useful. I know this was kind of a lot to squeeze into 10 minutes, but if you want to learn more about this, I've got a book called People Powered. It came out a little while ago. It's won a Business Book Award. It's doing great on Amazon and Goodreads with 5-star reviews, and it's been a bestseller. If you want to get a couple of chapters from the book for free, you can go to jonobacon.com/pack. And I'll send you some PDF chapters as well as some audiobook chapters. And I send out a whole load of best practice and tips and training and all kinds of other good stuff as well. So with that in mind, thank you, my friends. It's been a real honor to speak to you. Have a great event.